Forget Novacore, it's Marvel Studios that's really taking a risk with these criminals. You're watching Beyond the Trailers review of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Are you telling me the fate of 12 billion people is in the hands of these criminals?
Oh, yeah. I look around, you know what I see? Losers. But life's giving us a chance.
It's finally here. Fans have been eagerly anticipating this curiosity since Marvel Studios first announced they'd be rolling the dice with one of their most obscure comics. Sure, they'd made the publisher's B team their A team, but were they now just getting cocky? And at first, a movie starring Parks and Recreation's Chris Pratt, wrestler Dave Bautista, and little-seen motion capture princess Zoe Saldana, directed by a guy from Troma Entertainment, seemed to confirm that Marvel might have written a check they can't cash. Yet, as we've seen, is there any check parent company Disney can't cash? So the more time went on, the better this film began to look. Sure, director James Gunn practically set femme comic book website The Mary Sue on fire when an old misogynistic blog post resurfaced, but then the controversy just faded away. Perhaps because an underlying misogyny is a problem for the comic book industry as a whole, with publishers and fans. Or maybe it's because Marvel Studios has garnered so much loyalty from fans, those fans made the problem go away. Who knows? Guess it will depend on just how many lines Gamora gets, and if this assassin is sidelined as primarily Peter Quill's love interest. Things also started to look up when Bradley Cooper and Vin Diesel joined the cast to not only voice two characters with huge breakout potential, but also add some much-needed star power. Glenn Close and John C. Reilly help in that department as well. And then, of course, the Lego Movie made Chris Pratt an overnight sensation. Well, that and his new six-pack. And those trailers! Featuring a fun soundtrack from the 70s and 80s, cleverly playing off the fact that that was the last time Quill was on Earth, each one seemed to get better and better. And when a fan on YouTube cut Star Wars footage to one of the Guardians of the Galaxy trailer's audio tracks, it did indeed seem like we might have a new Star Wars on our hands. And Disney owns both. In fact, things have been going so well with this movie's ad campaign that we've barely even seen our villains. Not to mention there's been no real noise about Thanos, who's also supposed to appear. You know, the villain introduced at the end of the first Avengers who is said to be the big bad for this whole cinematic universe, and voiced by Josh Brolin. Yes, Guardians of the Galaxy doesn't seem like such a risk now, does it? Or are we just fooling ourselves because we want to see this succeed so badly?
I applaud this movie's ingenuity, but I despise its unprofessionalism, and that washes out to an okay movie. Now, you're going to notice that in this review, I'm going to go a little slower, be a little more careful, because I'm a tad upset, and I want to make sure this review remains impartial, that I'm not affected by how I'm feeling right now. Why am I upset? Because I think that Marvel misled me intentionally here. The trailer, totally misleading. This film is much slower paced than we've been promised. Also, Comic-Con doubled down on this movie. Only Guardians of the Galaxy announcements, really. The animated series, the sequel. And they didn't have any other reveals, in my opinion, to not pull focus from this movie. So, to have a disappointing Comic-Con and then not deliver with Guardians of the Galaxy, my trust is shaken a little bit and my feelings are a little bit hurt. So this is the non-spoiler review, so I'm going to give you my list of what I liked and what I didn't like. And for specifics, I hope you'll check out my spoiler review so we can really dig in here and pull this movie apart and see where it worked and where it didn't, in my opinion. All right, so what did I like about the film? All right, I really liked Rocket Raccoon and Groot. Were they as perfect as I'd wanted them to be, as they'd appeared to be from the advertising campaign? No. But with this movie, you take what you can get. And I really liked a lot of what they brought to the table here. And while Vin Diesel was totally wasted, he's just there as someone to show up on the red carpet. That's the character. He only says one line. But the animation team did a lot with Groot. And I think that both Bradley Cooper and the animation team working together on Rocket did a phenomenal job. There was just great. Of all the great moments in the movie, they belong to Rocket. So I would really love to see Rocket and Groot get their own movie, and I think we could jettison the rest of the team. All right, so what else did I like? I liked the humor. the thing, I wish there was more to the film than its humor, but the humor was good. There were some genuinely funny and clever moments, and I also appreciated the film's honesty. I liked seeing characters react to how people would in real life. It's on the verge of being meta, and some people have asked me, what does meta mean? And meta is self-aware. Like, I'm aware I'm in a comic book movie. I'm aware I'm fighting aliens in space and how crazy that is. I'm aware I'm in a Marvel movie. I think this film had a tinge of that. Just enough. And there were some genuinely funny, clever, and uniquely clever moments. So I appreciated that. I also liked the production design. Wow, great job here. Fantastic world building. I wish the script was as good as the world building. And I think that the detail that was put into the world building is also really impressive and phenomenal. Sometimes it came off a little bit as Star Trek light. It wasn't quite as unique as I would have liked, but there are some great aspects that really stood out. On the same note, kudos to the costume and makeup departments. They also did a phenomenal job, and they took risks. Sometimes the risks worked, sometimes they didn't. But for instance, where they really worked was with Ronan. Ronan had a fascinating look, really stood out. And so I was able to appreciate that they were trying to do something new here. Even when it didn't work out, I was like, hey, you know what? Not everything's a gem. Or a stone, as some people might have a little bit of a problem. They're called the Infinity Stones in this movie. A lot of you made a big deal about that in the video I made about the history of the Infinity Gauntlet. They're like, it's not stones, it's gems. Well, here it's stones. What else did I like? I also liked hints at other Marvel movies. They really drop a lot of hints for a potential sequel for this film and what's going to be going on later on in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So that kind of makes this, essential viewing. If you want to really know what's going on in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I just wish more awesome stuff happened in this movie instead of really being, it's almost like the movie that tries to fill in all the blanks on other movies. They're like, this isn't that entertaining, but you need to watch it to know what's going to happen later and to understand. And I still don't think, on that note, let's transition into what I didn't like about the film. I don't think it does a very good job of setting you up for what's going to happen. For instance, if I hadn't done all the research for my Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet video, which I do honestly recommend that you watch before you see this movie, because you're going to be able to follow it much better. If I hadn't done that research, I still would be lost on what's exactly happening with these Infinity Stones, Thanos, the Gauntlet, etc. And I think Marvel is, I don't know why they're playing it so close to the vest, but this is supposed to be the spine of their entire Marvel Cinematic Universe with Thanos and these stones, these Infinity Stones, and they're not really, they're not nailing it down. They're not, a spine is supposed to be straight, strong, and in place, and that is not the case here with this entire situation they're trying to set up. So I dislike that about the movie. I also disliked Gamora. For the deadliest woman in the universe, she sure has to be saved quite a bit. I'll get more into that in my spoiler review, but that was just awfully disappointing. I will say also, though, that Zoe Saldana, for all her makeup and prosthetics that were applied to her, at the end of the day, I can see why they didn't have her talk very much in the trailer, because she's just Zoe Saldana, who just happens to be green. She's no different than the role she played in Avatar, and she's no different than the role she plays in the new Star Trek films. It's just that Zoe Saldana is in space again. So I was disappointed at what they did not do with that character, because that's one of the few elements that's working in the Guardians of the Galaxy comic right now. I also didn't like Dave Bautista and Karen Gillan, because they couldn't act in this movie. Dave Bautista, I don't know if he can ever act. Who gave Dave Bautista so many lines? And who was watching him on set and wasn't tapping James Gunn on the shoulder for a private work conversation and saying, I'm sorry, and I know Dave Bautista's a nice guy, but he just simply cannot act. Now, Karen Gillan was very good in Oculus. I'm not familiar with her work on Doctor Who, but here, she was not good. And to have two, both her and Zoe Saldana, two warrior chicks in this intense makeup, who then didn't bring anything to the table performance-wise, they were just themselves, was just very off-putting and a dropped ball and two missed opportunities. Then I also, Ronan. Ronan looked cool, but that's about it. And, Lee Pace tried very hard. And I think that at the end of the day, though, you just have another Marvel movie that doesn't have a villain who registers. Once again, they cannot get their villains right. And Thanos, okay. When you head over to the spoiler review, we'll talk Thanos. And then finally, what I didn't like about the film was, I'm sorry to say, James Gunn. And I respect a lot of the ideas he brought to the table, but unlike Joss Whedon and a lot of other directors who've worked with Marvel, James Gunn didn't rise to the occasion. Instead, he brought Marvel down to his level, I feel, or closer to him than the professionalism that Marvel usually has. And that, to me, was quite disappointing. So, you know you have to see this movie just to see what you think of it. And also because it is very important to what's going to happen further on with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So you need to watch this. But I'd be very surprised if anyone would pay to watch it again, which could end up being a problem for this film down the road. Or if you're not into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because this doesn't do a very good job setting it up anyway, maybe you can skip it. Maybe you can just go, watch my video and go on and watch a couple of websites online to catch yourself up. But if it was on TV, maybe I would give it a second chance. But I'm very disappointed. I'm very disappointed, and I'm sure that's coloring my review a little bit. But I'm curious, what do you guys think? Are you as disappointed as I am? What did you like about the movie? What didn't you like? Please share your thoughts down below, and you can check out my spoiler review right now.